What's happening in Assembly District 34? Well, that is my Assembly District, and I am super excited with my current elected officials. So, the current Assembly member is Jessica González-Rojas, and she is running for State Senate District 13. Now, unfortunately, she would not be my state senator when she wins that Democratic primary, but I'm really excited to say that Jessica González-Rojas is running to be the next state senator for that district. She's running on a progressive vision with a great track record, even including fighting for free universal lunches for children all across New York State in public schools. So really great to see that she has been protecting immigrant communities, right? Providing resources, hosting trainings, organizing trainings, also know your rights sessions. So our immigrant communities in the district can actually fight back against the Trump administration. And she's been doing just a phenomenal job. I highly recommend you support Jessica González-Rojas in the Democratic primary for State Senate District 13. Now, of course, the incumbent there is Jessica Ramos, who, she has led on a progressive agenda when she first got into the state senate. I even organized a fundraiser for her back in the day when she was running back in 2018. So, unfortunately, since then, she did formally endorse former Governor Cuomo in the mayoral primary. Not the best move, and we're seeing the ramifications of that, where she's not getting the same kind of support on the ground as Jessica González-Rojas. But also, she doesn't speak highly of Mamdani. And you notice her interviews, she either speaks neutrally about policy in regards to him, or she does, I don't want to say make a jab, but she does heighten up the critiques. I'll say that. She does heighten her critiques when it comes to Mayor Mamdani. If there's any blunders or any things that she feels are worth calling him out for. So it's not great to see. But at the end of the day, she's running for that primary. But that's why we need allies of Mayor Mamdani like Jessica González-Rojas. She has the policy, the vision, and she is just an overall phenomenal person, and I am so looking forward to seeing her become the next state senator for District 13. So where does that leave the seat for Jessica González-Rojas? Well, really excited to say that Brian Romero, he is the candidate running for State Assembly District 34 to eventually succeed Jessica González-Rojas. So some quick highlights on Brian Romero. Well, first, I personally know him, so it's really fun to say that when you organize with someone, volunteer with someone, and just watch them go the extra mile and rise up in leadership, it's always a real treat, especially with someone with the caliber, qualifications, experience, and good heart like Brian Romero. So super excited for him. Now, his history, real quick, he grew up in Astoria, grew up in the area. He did move around a lot. So between Astoria, East Elmhurst, right, Woodside, he also, he's shared publicly that, he grew up with a single mom, moved around a lot, even one time being unhoused and growing up in NYCHA residency. So the fact that he's really, he's very much in just understands that struggle. So just the idea that Brian comes with that level of experience really knows that his heart is going to be in the right place, especially when fighting for more vulnerable and marginalized communities, especially being LGBTQ plus. For queer New Yorkers, right? Especially in that area of AD 34, where we have Jackson Heights and Astoria with large LGBTQ plus populations and residents. So really great to see that we will have someone fighting on our behalf. And Brian has done the work. He's been in so many leadership roles across so many organizations, Democratic clubs, right? Risen to the occasion, always fighting the good fight as a progressive, as a Democratic Socialist, as a member of the Queens chapter of DSA. So really great to see him continue this work, fighting for great policy, also having the background as a social worker, so someone who leads with their heart, but also with their experience, connecting with people, right? Makes him an unbelievably qualified candidate, especially for running for state assembly. And as a grassroots candidate, because again, most important part is that he does not accept a dime in corporate PAC money. So he is at full freedom to fight for progressive policy, especially taxing the rich. So really great to see Brian, go the extra mile. and also having that governmental experience being the chief of staff for not one, but two members in the state legislature, where he was the former chief of staff for Jessica González-Rojas. So clearly he knows the districts and built those relationships along the way. And then also, more recently, was the chief of staff for Kristen Gonzalez, state senator for Senate District 59. So having that governmental experience, not only in the state assembly, but also at the state senate, he's done a really good job also working through the policy, working with the elected representative to, fine tune the policy and the language, but to also just like kind of understand like how does it get messaged to the public, what needs to be in the bill, the data that backs the findings to the policy that's going to be written. So Brian does have phenomenal experience. So we don't get candidates like this often. So really, really thrilled to see Brian take that next step and lead. So with all that, right? Why are we talking about Brian Romero, especially today? Well, on last Friday, April 10th, that was a busy day for politics. It was really fun because Brian Romero's campaign hosted an event called Ink and Impact. Love the name because it really does describe in a succinct way what the campaign event was about. So in this case, we were writing messages on different, basically like campaign literature, let's say, right? Like kind of like the brochure kind of style that you would like slip under the door or like put on someone's doorstep. Like, so we were writing messages that not only, number one, thanked these voters for getting Brian on the ballot because a lot of them gave their petition signature when signing, for Brian. But then two, also just kind of reaffirm like what Brian is fighting for. So it was like the thank you message plus the policy or platform reference. And it was a really good way to like connect the dots and like show like your signature means something because now it's going to help, unlock a lot of these great policy ideas for our district. For example, there were like a few prompts that we got to choose from when writing. There were probably like 7 or so. So some of them, kind of went into like making Queens more affordable, like making sure the rich pay their fair share, making Queens more, or leading into like climate resiliency, right? Also making sure we were protecting immigrants and immigrant families, making Queens more safe and welcoming. So there's a whole slew of angles that like Brian's campaign is anchored on and was able to like relay that through the, messages of hope and inspiration. So I love that type of stuff because for me, it just really shows like, one, it's cathartic because one thing to like volunteer for a campaign and knock on doors, but it's another to really like immerse yourself in the platform, like, and what the connection is with the voter. So like, it just gives another like level of like hands-on experience, but that personal touch that a lot of campaigns sometimes don't necessarily have going on. Maybe they avoid because they don't have the time. But it's a nice personal touch that Brian's campaign is thinking of, and it just, hey, if you're a voter in Assembly District 34 and you get one of those like palm cards with the message attached, I hope you enjoy it. I wrote about 22 of them, and like my hand was definitely sore by the end. But at the end of the day, I'm so glad I did it because I just felt more invested in the community, in our local democracy specifically, and I cannot wait to see the other part, which were our posters. Brian had a slew of campaign signs, right, with his campaign logo on it, right? And some of us had the opportunity to decorate those posters with a little bit of glitter, right? We had glitter and markers. Volunteers at the event were writing, fun phrases that like, protect Queens, Queens for all, protect immigrant families, like all those kind of things on the posters, but also just like dabbing a bit of glitter here, bit of glitter there. And that would just kind of make things a little more fabulous and fun. And those posters you may see up around the district in small businesses. So if you do, make sure to take a selfie, tag Brian's campaign. I'm sure that the campaign would love to see it and the support around the district. So really cool that like we had another hands-on experience, like letting our creativity kind of just like, run free. So really great to see these campaign moments. But also like, it was a small event. It was on a Friday. I think it was like promoted like the same day. So it didn't have a lot of lead time. But we had like just about 10 people in the room. So it was great to have like a few people come out on a Friday after a long week of work, right? But people wanted to show their support, relax, get to know one another, and kind of just like, have some witty banter, hang out, and like just enjoy local politics, especially doing a creative activity while doing it. So it was such a great event. And like, hey, it's not like, it doesn't mean like if you have like, you don't need the biggest event, you don't need like, a million things going on to call it successful. If the benchmark was we need to write, a decent number of hopeful messages and decorate a few posters, honestly, it sounds like, and based on being there, like the mission was accomplished. And mind you, one other fun fact, this was actually hosted at the Queensboro. The Queensboro, great place if you want like great Mexican food, great food overall, also good drinks. I've been there for brunch in the past, great venue. We were actually in our special private event area downstairs, and they had like, decorations around the room, like balloons and signs from Brian's campaign. So it was a nice touch. And, the owner, Michael, he came down to say hello, and, they provided food for us. We had salad, pizza, and French fries. So it was fun little like foods to snack on while we were, writing our messages and decorating the posters. So overall, great event for a Friday after work, just like chill, hang out, and like, invest in our local democracy. And it's like an easily accessible event that like more people, even folks that like, not into politics, could easily join, write a few messages, and decorate a poster. Or you make it a family event, right? You have kids come down, they can color, they can write. Like, you just make it accessible so more people can get involved and just, enjoy a casual time with, fellow neighbors, fellow volunteers, right? People who just want to make the world a better place. And if writing a message or decorating a poster is their preferred avenue to do it, then I'm absolutely supportive of it. So congrats to Brian, running, not only collecting 3,000 petition signatures, which is awesome, but also just running a strong campaign that is really speaking to the needs of the district, but then also just creating events like this. Ink and Impact, super fun, casual, and accessible to people in the district. So cannot wait to see when the next event is, but also now that petitioning season is over, I hope to see you and many other people out knocking doors on behalf of Brian Romero running for state assembly for District 34 in Astoria, Woodside, Queens, East Elmhurst, Jackson Heights, and that vicinity. So please join me in voting for Brian Romero if you're in the district. For those outside the district, feel free to donate to Brian Romero. He does get matching funds for New York City residents, especially folks in the district. But also, nonetheless, Brian's running a great campaign, so please come out and volunteer, help us knock on doors and canvass for Brian Romero. And I cannot wait to see what the campaign has in store next. And if you're interested in running for office, keep an eye on local races and what these candidates are doing, because that may actually inform you and you may learn a thing or two, but also give you the confidence to take that next step, get involved in your democracy, whether you're looking to volunteer, looking to be a part of the campaign in some capacity, or eventually run for office yourself. I highly encourage you to get involved because that is suitable for democracy. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate the support. It's always a treat talking about our local issues, especially right here in Assembly District 34. So if you're watching and you live in AD 34, then please give us a shout out, leave us a comment, let us know, your thoughts, and especially if you're supporting Brian Romero for State Assembly. So make sure to subscribe to Not Suitable for Democracy on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And then also follow along on Instagram and TikTok. I use the same handle for both, so you can follow along at NSFD_pod. Stay tuned for the June Democratic primary on June 23rd, where you will have a chance to vote for Brian Romero for State Assembly AD 34, and early voting starts 10 days before, so we'll keep you posted. But until then, make sure you're staying involved in your local democracy, because that is how we build our movement.